My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Right, my flows hit you at straight 88 miles per hour. That's enough to generate 1.21 gigawatts, son. And I'm on the run from the Libyans. It was a straight jack move for plutonium.
What's up? Welcome everybody to TSP TV, where it is night 3 of 2 weeks of tea, part of TSP TV's 2-year anniversary celebrations, where 3 people got to see an intro that took me almost 7 hours to make. And it's not like I haven't told you guys, 9 p.m. every night for the next 2 weeks, but nevertheless we do got 3 folks watching, one of which is Sings Along, Prodigal Stranger returning to the thrift store. We're up to 4 now, so I'm guessing notifications didn't go out, and the fact that I did post on Facebook the last 3 days that we would be nightly at 9, maybe most people didn't get the message. But there's Marty. Welcome Marty. It is night 3, as I said, of 2 weeks of tea, where you lucky folks do get to see me each and every night for the next couple of weeks up to the 29th, which will be TSP TV's 2nd birthday. If not, you want to send cards, gifts and presents, feel free. Sings Along, if you want to transport yourself up here in the back of a U-Haul, half naked in the back of a cake, and jump out and sing happy birthday a little bit like Marilyn Monroe, no one is going to stop you other than probably your husband and your own inhibitions. But welcome guys. 4 folks are watching, and I almost was certainly sure that tonight's stream would get very few views in terms of algorithmic presence and behavior. So anyway, without any further ado, how did you like that intro, those of you that did watch? That was the best part of this presentation that I got planned tonight for you, in my opinion. It did take a lot of time and effort putting that little 5-minute thing together, believe it or believe it not. Took close to 7 hours. Yes, 7 hours for 5 minutes of intro that I'm probably not going to use again, that only 3 people got to see, but maybe people will watch it in the rerun, as often is the case. People do get to enjoy the replays of the live shows, but for those of you who are lucky enough to join us, and there is our little Cajun agent joining in the proceedings. There I am. Let's get rid of the thumbnail. Welcome everybody. How are you all doing? So I'm doing pretty upbeat today, funnily enough. Sings, you did ask in the comments during the intro, which is part and parcel of the intro, is a little bit of a purpose behind that, is to get people into place. Maybe, notifications, word gets around on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, let you know that we are up and running live, and then some of you guys then that are watching the intro and are in the live chat can say your hellos and all that kind of stuff. Glynis made it. Welcome, darling. Hug slot. I'm hugging the camera, but I'm hugging each and every one of you. Glad to see you, sweetheart. And I think I've got a little bit of a wonky camera. No, I haven't. But anyway, this is night 3, TSP TV, and believe it or believe it not, as I was saying, guys, I've been a little bit up to beat today. I've been very productive, although time did start slipping away for me, which is ironic because tonight's topic, as chosen by you guys yesterday, almost not unanimously, but we only had about 10 folks watching, but the majority of you who voted when I did give you the option what tonight's topic was going to be about was time travel, and first to the pedestal and to lead those votes was our little Cajun agent. So we did have 7 folks watching. We're back down to 4, so let's not forget, let's also take a moment to pause and welcome the Google moderator team, because they are watching and will be there ready and waiting to go if any of you bad people in the chat say things that they don't like. So don't be shy, Google moderator team, join in, leave us a thumbs up, post a comment and tell you what you think about tonight's presentation that we will be seeing momentarily. So it's saying I've got 4 folks watching, which is a little bit disappointing. As I said, we have been telling you throughout the course of these last 2, and this being the 3rd in the series of 2 weeks of tea, which we do plan to bring 14 live shows in a row. Not something we have done it before. I was going to say it's not something that is new. Welcome Kelly Kibo once again to the thrift store. Thank you, come again. So it's saying we've got 5 folks to now. So as I said, it is a little bit disappointing that there are only 5 watching, because it is possibly the most excited I have ever been about doing a show, if ever. Like I said, I don't think I can recall ever a time that I've done a stream before that I've been so eager to get up and running. And you may notice we were running on clockwork, 9 p.m. We started rolling, although there was only 2 people watching at that point. But yesterday, as I said, a little bit of a choice, choose your own content, so to speak, a little bit like Choose Your Own Adventure, those books that were very, very popular back in the 1980s, something I spent a lot of time with my head in the pages of. But you know, I've been on a little bit of a stumbling block sometimes over the last, or say sometimes, quite a lot of the times over the last few weeks. Lots of stuff going on, personal level, societal level, everywhere there just seems to be complete and utter chaos in disinformation, distress, distrust, who knows, but we're trying to carry on regardless. A little bit also the purpose of 2 weeks of tea is to sort of give me something to do each and every day, and today I actually did feel the benefits of that in putting together tonight's presentation. And yesterday evening, after I did finish the stream, I was very excited and almost wanted to start the stream there and then, because time travel is something that is a big interest to me. And in particular, Back to the Future is something we've been talking about a little bit in recent weeks in terms of the Decoding Reality 1985 special that I did. And I am on a little bit of a rabbit hole, wormhole, whatever you want to call it, in regards of putting together a little bit of fiction decoded of my own, similar to Utopia. Is there a hidden message and a series of clues and cryptic messaging within a lot of movies that come out in and around the mid-80s regarding time travel? Are they leading us to the truth behind the fiction and the truth that possibly spawned and fueled the fictitious genre of time travel within science fiction realms? And it is one of the more popular realms of science fiction. It's almost, you know, throw a dart at a movie, let's talk about that. So what I've tried to do today, and as I said, time did get a little bit away from me because it was something I was looking forward to doing, and as I said, it was a little bit ironic seeing as the subject is about time travel, but it did spark my enthusiasm to get into ship video productions and put together stuff, which is something I was mentioning is been a little bit of a stumbling block for me in recent weeks due to all the above that we mentioned, but still, that aside, getting back into the swing of things, trying to be a little bit of productive, trying to give myself a purpose each and every day is something that was part and parcel of 2 weeks of tea. Give me something to do each day for the next 2 weeks, as well as commemorating and celebrating the 2-year anniversary of this channel, which is kind of, again, a little bit disappointing why more people aren't here, because it's the community really and truly that has been built and formed as a result of people who have found the thrift store and TSP TV that are now in the chat, and sort of sometimes, you know, life gets in the way, personal circumstances prevent people from always tuning in. But that is one of the sort of unforeseen things that sort of come of this channel that I didn't sort of inspect. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect when I did start TSP TV. Maybe this is stuff we can talk about in another episode, because I don't want to get too off topic, because we do got a presentation to watch, and I'm very excited to show the 7 of you, 9 now, who have bothered to tune in. But we've come a long way in the 2 years, or I've come a long way in the 2 years. But as I was saying, the community that formed and built in a sort of companionship that a lot of you guys have found is, you know, you and I have become friends, and many of you that watch have become friends, and we do have a little tiny sort of network of thrifty preppers, and I'd like to think in times of hardship you would possibly be able to come together and help each other out, particularly those in close proximity. Glad to see you, Devils, speaking. You are one of the catalysts and fueling factors in my renaissance of enthusiasm to to put together these presentations. So yesterday we had a bit of a fun stream. I didn't have a presentation or anything planned, and that was a little bit part of falling back into that. I just don't want to do anything with myself yesterday. And once again, before I knew it, it was too late in the day to really even start putting anything together for a presentation in terms of recording, editing, processing. It got away, but we did a little bit of a shoot from the hip. We had a little bit of that's what it's called, knowing T and knowing you. Devil Speak and Vincent, hopefully he can join us again tonight. They were adding some wonderful contributions to the chat and fueling the topics, and some of that as I said, re-energized myself, and today I do feel very, very productive. Almost everything I touched, I'm not going to say turned to gold, but everything for a change sort of went my way, and I was running on clockwork. The force was with me. I am one with the force. Enjoyed putting together the presentation that we will be seeing very, very shortly. It is about an hour and 20 minutes long, which is sort of a little bit longer than maybe I wanted to with these presentations. Maybe an hour is the mark that I'm trying to get to. And again, part of this TSP TV 2 weeks of tea celebrations is a little bit like spring break, in the sense that I'm sort of maybe trying to reformat and come up with some ideas and put together sort of what I consider to be the perfect product for the handful of Thrift Fam community members that do tune in and regularly watch these videos. And, you know, in recent weeks, I've sort of spent some time and effort uploading videos that only get like 30, 40 views and almost no comments. And I sort of wonder why that is. Is it because they really, truly are shit videos that I'm shit video producing? Or is it maybe that there's nothing in those videos that really sparks any thoughts or interests of anybody who did take the time to watch those videos? Or there is a strong possibility that maybe people just click on it, watch it for a couple of minutes, give it a thumbs up, maybe a generic comment, and go and watch something else, or maybe get back to sharing and agreeing and saying amen on social media platforms. But it does seem to me that the live streams do get more viewing, and the fact that we are a little bit more community based and maybe more of a channel, that possibly the way to go is, because I do enjoy editing, funny enough, and I do kind of like putting together things, and it does keep my mind occupied. And today I've been very occupied and focused on the presentation we are going to see, and that's good because it stopped me sort of staring at the walls, feeling sorry for myself, and again, getting a little bit back into the gears running and getting back into sort of putting together a little bit of a daily routine and sort of sensing and having a little bit of a sense of purpose about myself. So it says we've got 9 folks watching. Let's do my little thing here, because you know I do like to play around with my prism. Part of the improvements in efforts I've put together. There you go, TSP TV. We are on YouTube, and we do multi-stream now. We're also live on Facebook, although I'm pretty sure absolutely no one's watching. And maybe my secret admirer, Taco Muncher, my one and only follower on Twitch, is watching. And as I told you, Taco Muncher, if you want me to unbutton my shirt, put some tips in the tip jar, and we will unbutton as many buttons as you can afford for me to unbutton. Double figures, awesome. We're up to 10 folks. So anyway, guys, time travel, that stuff aside, time travel, that was the topic you chose yesterday when I presented 3 options to you out of MK Ultra, Alien Agenda, and time travel run. And I did, as I said, after the stream yesterday, get very excited and did put together, or start putting together, the little intro that none of you watched, because none of you were watching at that time. But go back watching the replay, because I did put a lot of time and effort into that. Yeah, we should try a lot of things, Glynis, but I do have a DLive account. I looked at it. I don't even know how to upload a video on there for love nor money. I've looked and tried to figure it out. So because it was instantly irritating, I thought, fuck you, DLive. And that's a little bit of the attitude I've got. But we are extending now onto Twitch, and if or not, we will go on to any other platforms in the future, who knows. But at the minute, I'm working with what I've got. The handful of folks that do watch are primarily on YouTube, so that is where we will keep ourselves primarily focused at the moment. Welcome. Now, no worries, Jeep. Been a little while since we've seen you. 7 rockets shot into Iraq. Don't know who did it. May have been targeting US Embassy. Can't say I've heard anything about that. An interesting number, 7, Iraq. Who knows what's going on with that? But it is always good to keep a little bit of an eye on global events. But back to the the future, maybe. But back to the time travel. As I said, that was something that you guys wanted to bring a topic of discussion for tonight, and I thought maybe again, giving you guys a chance to choose what we talk about might encourage more of you to come back. And that's a little bit what I'm trying to do, is leave you wanting more. So as I said, we've got about an hour 20 minutes presentation to look at on time travel, and I probably will be getting into that sooner rather than later. Is Anika here? Yes, she is. Kisses and hugs to you, little Anika. Glad that you are here. But time travel is something that since I was a kid fascinated me, and I'm almost certain it's fascinated some of you, or maybe not fascinated to the extent it's fascinated me. But we've all had a concept of time travel, and I'm pretty sure that at one point in our lives we've often wished that we could maybe turn back the hands of time, go back to a certain event and change those events for the better, in our personal opinion, and usually maybe tragedies, lost love, or what have you, might be the reason that we go back. Or maybe, like in Back to the Future, going back in time and giving ourselves all the sports result in a Hayes Sports Almanac, which you can go and bet on a winner each and every time and amount a massive money, like Biff did in Back to the Future 2. He stole the DeLorean, stole the Hayes Sports Almanac, went back to 1955, give his younger self the book, and when he returned to the future, he ended up dying because he got cancer from an extensive lifetime, because he changed that particular timeline. But as I was saying, guys, I'm pretty sure each and every one of us at some point in time has wished that we could go back into the past, or maybe even go into the future. Before we do see the presentation, where would you go? Let's ask for a question, a little bit of group interaction here. Make sure some of you are awake and paying attention. What's up, Taku Funky 777? Glad to see you again. Yeah, I am alive. We're alive and live, part of night 3 of 2 nights, 2 weeks of tea. It's 2 years celebration at Taku, so be sure to set your reminders and calendars for the next couple of weeks. We will be live every night at 9. I have a warning about deleted history. Well, that's good. Deleted history is something that might be within the realms of time travel, and the reason I say that's good is because I did run out of time a little bit today in doing my presentation, and possibly was getting a little bit too carried away with what I was putting in the presentation. Figures, you know what? Back to the Future was a trilogy. Why don't we do a trilogy of time travel specials through the next 2 weeks, 2 weeks of tea, special events? If that flies with you guys or not, it doesn't matter. I'm doing it anyway, but hopefully you will be on board. And what you just said there, no worries about deleted history. Maybe you'd like to contribute to the next episode, or the sequel to this back in time special presentation that we've got for you today. Do I keep a journal? Not really, no worries. I mean, I guess in a way this is sort of a little bit journalistic. But anyway, here we are there. So what I was going to ask, where would you go if you could have time travel? Would you travel to the future, or would you travel to the past? Let's get a little bit of, as I said, group participation before we do dive into the presentation, which I hope you will enjoy as much as I enjoyed making, but that will remain to be seen once it's done and dusted. But deleted history, maybe, that's people going back and changing events and sort of stuff like the Mandela effect. That's very, very similar to sort of what Marty McFly did in Back to the Future. When he went back, he kind of inadvertently changed his timeline and started to cease to exist. But also a couple of other things. He changed the way his dad's attitude was by finally punching Biff and standing up to bullies. He got some confidence and went out to write a book. So when Marty McFly went back to the 1985, certain things were different. I would travel to the past, not sure where or what era exactly. Well, there you go. Thank you, Anika, for starting the ball rolling on where you would go in the past. You know, maybe a hypothetical question. If you had one journey to the past and your purpose was to save or prevent a certain event happening, what would you do? Would you go back in A, kill Hitler, B, stop Kennedy being assassinated rather, or C, stop 9/11? Alan Habs, welcome. Can I add you on my website? Of course you can, Taku Funky. If you so wish, feel free to add me to whatever websites you want. And if not, you guys are wanting to share this stuff to your social media, go ahead. Do it on your own free will and not because I told you to. A Gilmore, is that what I'm saying? A Gilmore? Maya? Grymire. I'm thinking of Gilmore Girls. Sorry, my eyes aren't is very good. Spiritually protected from manipulation. Is that about the removing of the past, or is that what you would do in the past if you went back? I don't know what you're talking about there. Sorry, no worries if I've missed something there. But glad to see we are now up to 11 folks. As I said, we've got about an hour and 20-minute presentation to see eventually. I am just waiting to see if anyone else is going to tell me if they wanted to go back or forward in time. So far, only Anika had any thoughts or comments on that. So don't be shy. Let me know. Where would you go, back or forward? Personally, I think I would go back in time, and I'm not entirely sure what era. A little bit like Anika. The 1980s were probably my fondest era of my time, a time where I was carefree and a little bit free of the burdens of adulthood and what life throws on your shoulders. But if I were to experience a time before my time, I think I'd possibly like to go back to the 1950s. I certainly like that sort of rock and roll era sort of music, and it does seem a little bit more wholesome. Hey, Kali Ninja, glad to see you. 5,000 visits. I think I can link you. Of course, Taku, do whatever it is you want to do. And if you have a link to your website, although you can't post it in the comments, try and get it to me one way or another, and I will post it for peeps from here to go check you out. Or, you know, just let us know what we need to search for to find you, and those folks who want to find you will do. So I do appreciate that, Taku. So still no one else is willing to let us know if they want to go back in time or forward in time. So why not? Let's get on with the presentation. Where is it? Here we go. Come on. Right. Oh God, hold on. So I will be turning the camera and the mic off, but I will be joining you in the chat. Don't you worry about that. Hold on, what am I doing? Sorry about this, guys. I normally set this part up before, so the camera is off now. That's good. Hopefully that is centralized for you there so you can still hear me. Nancy likes time travel. Couldn't get on sooner. Bad storm was rolling through and no signal. Sorry to hear that, but glad you are with us now. So Taku Funky 777. Your website, I guess, is Matrix Revolution 777. So while the presentation is on, I will go and see if I can find that and post a link in the comments. And for those of you who are in place, 14 now watching. So that's good. Who knows how many more will join us? So some of you are turning up for the best part of the show probably, but we will be going on a little bit longer after this presentation, and hopefully what you are going to see now will fuel some will provide some fuel for thought. That's what I'm trying to say there. Yeah, it's not a bad idea actually there, Noah, is about a journal. So maybe something to look into. And welcome, Mrs. L. Glad to see you here. If you are a first-time visitor to the thrift store, you've probably picked a good episode to make as your first visit. But if you are a returning person, which I think you may be, that does sound a little bit familiar, welcome back. Glad to see you. 15 folks now watching. And indeed, thank you, Martha and Noah, for that. Food for thought. That's what I'm trying to do, is provide you a little bit of food for thought. So as I said, once this is done, we will come back to the thrift store studio where you can get a glance at my ugly mug again, and maybe Muncher Taco Eater on Twitch will ask me to unbutton my shirts again. So without any further ado, folks, let's start the presentation. Hopefully we are up and running. Let me turn off my mic.
Wikipedia to find out what time travel is all about, or what Wikipedia suggests time travel is all about. And why not stop off at Wikipedia for a bite-sized bite of information to titillate the senses. But anyway, time travel, according to Wikipedia, is the concept of movement between certain points in time, analogous to movement between different points in space by an object or person, typically with the use of a hypothetical device known as a time machine. Time travel is a widely recognized concept in philosophy and in fiction. The idea of a time machine was popularized by good old H.G. Wells's 1895 novel, The Time Machine. Bear in mind, there was no aviation, tanks, planes, or anything back in 1895 when H.G. Wells wrote his classic and wondrous novel, The Time Machine. Wonderful piece of literature and a huge influence on my life. But anyway, it is uncertain if or not time travel to the past is physically possible. However, forward time travel outside the usual sense of the the perception of time. Sorry, my eyes were squinting a little bit then at the screen. But the usual sense of the perception of time is an extensively observed phenomenon and well understood within the framework of special relativity and general relativity. However, making one body advance or delay more than a few milliseconds compared to another body is not feasible with current technology available to mankind, although there might indeed be technology available to a certain select few of elites and maybe governmental agencies that are hidden away in a bunker underground out in the middle of nowhere, like Montauk or maybe Area 51. But as for backward time travel, it is possible to find solutions in general relativity that allow for it, such as rotating a black hole, traveling to an arbitrary point in a space timeline has very limited support in theoretical physics and is usually connected only with quantum mathematics and mechanics or wormholes. So there is a little bit of a brief description of what time travel is, and as I said, we're not exactly going to delve too deeply and greatly into the scientific stuff of theories of time travel too much, because that would be getting a little bit long-winded and sort of maybe a little bit out of the realms and out of my depth of understanding, because I do have a concept of time travel, as most people do, but I'm not a scientist or a physician or anybody that kind of has a greater grasp and concept of the mechanics and mathematics and physics and chemistry and whatever else that goes into that theory. But I am somebody who has studied time travel as a little bit of interest, mostly through the realms of fiction that led me to sort of think and theorize, is at all any of that possible. So without any further ado, let's go and have a little look at H.G. Wells's classic 1895 novel, The Time Machine, which is something that, as I've mentioned, was an influence on me, and certainly something that sparked my interest in time travel as much as some of the more popular movies of the 1980s, Back to the Future in particularly, that did also spark an interest for me in time travel. So let's pop over to the pages of H.G. Wells right now. So here we are at the Library of Britannica, or the Britannica Library website, where we are going to look a little bit at H.G. Wells's Time Machine novel, which was, as we've discovered in the previous little article from Wikipedia, was published in 1895. God, what's that, 140 years ago, something like that? Not far off, 135 years. So an awful, awful long time ago. None of us were alive when this publication was first released, but it has been also novelized. It's been put in comic book form as well as movies. And here we can see Rod Taylor from the 50s version, or was 60s version. I can't remember when the movie was released at time of recording. My apologies. Maybe I should have researched that before I started this recording, but never mind. Some of you may be aware of this movie or familiar with this movie that come out back in the sort of era of pulp sci-fi. And as I said, this is probably Rod Taylor will never play a better part than the time traveler in this adaptation of the H.G. Wells classic. And there is Weena, the futuristic girl that he meets and befriends and goes on an adventure with, and discovers that in the aftermath of the nuclear war, humanity had somehow split into two subspecies. There were the Eloi, which were pretty much livestock and cattle that dwelled upon the Earth's surface, that provided the food source for the subterranean dwelling Morlocks, who were the sort of survivors who went underground, I guess, when the bombs went off, and as a result lived underground for the rest of their lives and kind of mutated and evolved into sort of weird and wonderful creatures. But the Time Machine movie was the movie that was possibly my gateway into time travel theory, and sort of opened the wide eyes of a young lad into the theory and possibilities of time travel, as did another popular cult pulp sci-fi TV series, The Time Tunnel, that also used to air back on TV in the UK, that was of particular interest to me. So this was all pre-1985 and pre-Back to the Future. So when 1985 came along and there was a movie about time travel that kind of was set in contemporary times, I was first in line waiting for that to be released on opening night at the ABC cinema back in my hometown of Swindon. But anyway, I get a little bit off point there. Let's see what the Britannica Library has to say about H.G. Wells. So, in summary, Wells advanced his social and political ideas on his narrative of a nameless time traveler who is hurtled into the year 8000. Yeah, that one. So he's like thousands of years into the future there. 802,701. My goodness, that's difficult. Imagine having to write in checks and stuff with that. How would you abbreviate it? But anyway, by his elaborate ivory, crystal, and brass contraption. Very interesting. Remember, ivory, crystal, and brass, guys, because we will be developing in unraveling a few mysteries and possibilities, and maybe even plausible theories about the fact that maybe there is time travel technology available to a very certain few. But anyway, with his wonderful, wonderful contraption, and it is, goodness gracious, if I had to choose between H.G. Wells' Time Machine and the DeLorean, my God, that is a tough, tough one. Maybe you could start to decide which time machine you would prefer. Or maybe even if we threw Bill and Ted's phone booth into the mix, that would be a debate waiting to happen. It could take some time in hours, I'm sure, of entertainment. But the world, he finds, is peopled by two races, as I've just mentioned: the decadent Eloi, fluttery and useless, just roaming around up on the land, oblivious to the evil in cannibalistic Morlocks that live beneath their feet, and they're sort of controlled a little bit, I think, by some kind of sound. There was an alarm that when the alarm sounded, they would sort of go into a zombie-like state and wander off into a bunkers, where the Morlocks would round them up and then later eat them. And as we would just mention, the Morlocks live underground, and they provide the Eloi with clothing, shelter, and food, keep them fed and well looked after, just like a farmer looks after his livestock. The Morlocks made sure that the Eloi had a very healthy life, and in the book they do actually mention that the Eloi do repopulate a lot of hedonism going on in a promiscuity. I don't know if that's correct, but you know what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of fucking and frolicking going along in the future with the Eloi, and this is because they are the food source for the Morlocks. And you know, sometimes in contemporary news and alternative news platforms, you might hear about celebrities that enjoy eating human flesh, in particular young children, and adrenochrome stuff you've heard. Soylent Green. That was also about cannibalistic feature tendencies, and how a certain select few of people held the secret to Soylent Green, which was it was made out of human substances, and they were using the humans as part of a recycling processing from the euthanasia clinic. The Food and Drug Administration working hand in hand, providing the source of food as well as the cure to depression. Wonderful hand in glove symmetry going on there. But anyway, the Morlocks live underground, and the names are borrowed from the biblical Eli and Moloch, symbolize Wells' version of the eventual result of unchecked capitalism, a neurasthenic upper class that would eventually be devoured by a proletariat driven to the depths. So there's a little picture of the scary Morlocks, and they were very, very scary. I should have put some Morlocks in the intro, but it took 7 hours as it happens, as it did. So there's only so much you can put into a 5-minute intro, but there are the Morlocks, and they kind of do represent, I guess, a little bit the kind of political elites, the wealthy haves, as opposed to the have-nots that live on the surface, that really are, you know, a little example of human farming for you there. But the Time Machine first novel is a scientific romance that introverts the 19th century belief in evolution as progress. The story follows a Victorian scientist who claims that he has invented a device that enables him to travel through time, and has visited the future, arriving in the year 802 701. In what had once been London. He finds the future race, or more accurately, races, because the human species has evolved into two distinct forms. Above ground live the Eloi, gentle, fairy-like, childish creatures whose existence appears to be free of struggle, and oblivious bliss for the Eloi. They have no idea that there is a hidden deep state subculture of humans that are feasting upon them. They appear to be free of struggle. However, another race of beings exists, the Morlocks, underground dwellers who once subservient, now prey on the feeble, defenseless Eloi by setting the action. Nearly a million years into the future, Wells was illustrating the Darwinian model of evolution and natural selection by fast-forwarding through a slow process of changes to species, the physical world, and the solar system. The novel is a class fable as well as a scientific parable, which the two societies of Wells' own period, the upper classes and the lower classes, and the lower orders rather, are recast as equally through differently degenerate beings. Degeneration is evolution in reverse, while Wells' dystopic vision in The Time Machine is deliberately debunking of utopian fictions of late 19th century. In particular, William Morris's News from Nowhere, where Morris depicts a pastoral socialist utopia. Wells represents a world in which the human struggle is doomed to failure. So there you go. That was a little bit about H.G. Wells and his novel. And as I said, it was the movie and the book that fueled and sparked my interest in the time travel theory. And it would be rude not to mention the other great time travel influence in my life, Back to the Future, which is what we're going to look at now, guys. So bear with me, buckle up. 121 gigawatts. Set your time machine's destination into your flux capacitor and get ready to hit 88 miles an hour, folks, because we're going to see some serious shit and go back to the Future. So here we are at the Back to the Future website. Where better to discuss Back to the Future than on the Back to the Future website. Now, I actually was planning to do a Back to the Future special back in October. In fact, I was going to try and release it and do something on October 26th, which is the date that Marty McFly went back in time from the Twin Pines Mall in Hill Valley, California, and traveled back to 1955. Hill Valley, California, where his exploits and adventures truly began when he prevented his mother and father from meeting, and thus became the intentions of his mother's own romantic interest. My goodness, time traveling, incest, all the stuff going on that you could imagine in Back to the Future is what made it, as they are saying, the timeless classic original. There probably is never ever going to be another Back to the Future. I'm not saying Back to the Future is the greatest movie ever made, but Back to the Future is the gold seal. It is the Mac Daddy of all time travel trilogies in movies and fiction, I think. And it does punch a very good fight alongside H.G. Wells' timeless classic that we just looked at for my personal best piece of time traveling fiction. Share if you agree. 99% of you aren't brave enough to, but can I get an amen if you do? But I'm pretty sure a lot of you will also be very familiar with and fans of Back to the Future, because it's almost impossible not to like. If or not some of you are as enthusiastic and indulgent in Back to the Future as I am, is probably unlikely, but most people can escape some knowledge of the pop cultural phenomenon that was Back to the Future, that spawned 3 movies that traversed through several time periods: 1955, 1985, 2015, and way back in 1863, I believe, was where the doc ended up after they pieced all the pictures of pieces together, rather, in the puzzle that Biff Tannen had got himself his hands on the DeLorean, and not only the DeLorean, the Hayes Sports Almanac, and went back in 1955 and give his young self the almanac, and thus become the richest man in the world in Back to the Future 2. The luckiest man in the world. He had very, very large towers and casinos, and sort of was very, very similar and almost characteristically looking like a certain president, POTUS, that may not have that long in office left. But we're not going to get into politics. But there are some similarities between Back to the Future's 2 Biff Tannen and Donald Trump, certainly when he was successful. But anyway, Biff had a tower, Trump's got a tower. Are there some similarities in that? And we will be talking a little bit about the possibility of Trump having a time travel device all of his own a little bit shortly. There's a teaser. Hopefully some of you might want to stay tuned, although I'm pretty sure a bunch of folks have already stopped viewing since we started this stream. But anyway, a worldwide cultural phenomenon and the highest grossing film of 1985, Back to the Future touched one of the most successful, launched one of the most successful franchises in Universal Cinemas history, including 2 theatrical sequences. It also spawned an animated series and a theme park ride, toys, comics, books, video games, and apparel. Back to the Future was branded, marketed. People love it. You can't get enough of it. The film has also been inducted into the National Film Registry, having been deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And this was very much the case of Back to the Future because it was set in 1985, almost in real time. It was, I think, almost released within coincidence of the date that Marty traveled back in time. Um, and I think maybe it was a few weeks before. So when it was released, even the events of Back to the Future were in the future tense, so to speak. Because I think it come out in the summer. It's like one of the big summer blockbusters, but it come out just before the date that Marty did take place. So at time of release, the entire Back to the Future trilogy took place in the future. However, here we are in 2020. The entire Back to the Future, even the future part, is now in the past. So there we go. But as I was saying, it was so very because it was set in 1985, and it was so very, very adamant on sort of projecting all the heights of modern technology and trends of the time. Walkmans, JFC video cameras, Pepsi free skateboards, diet sodas in particular become very popular in the mid 80s, in the saccharin and the NutraSweet. Was this poisons and stuff that bred AHDD sort of stuff, or ADHD, sorry, I forgive me, and sort of these sort of mental health issues that seemed to start to spawn and generate in kids during the 90s and early 2000s. But anyway, that's another little bit of a topic and food for thought for some of you out there, and something we did delve a little bit in during the 1985 reality decoded special I did a little while ago. But as I said, it paid a great attention to detail, to capturing everything of the time, and then obviously it went back to a more simpler time of 1955, and there is a little bit of significance about 1955 because that was a year that the US government spent more money and carried out more nuclear testings than they ever have done. And we have got, I mean, I could do an entire show on Back to the Future, and in particular some of the time travel movies of that era, particularly between 84 and 86. There's a lot of time travel content being not only on the silver screens but on the small screens. And as I said, this even might end up being a two-part special stream because there is so much to talk about in realms of time travel. And as I said, it's almost impossible to talk about time travel without using Back to the Future as a cultural reference. And as most people have seen this film, they can kind of understand the concepts of time travel as a result. And was this the purpose of Back to the Future, to introduce the mainstream into the ideas of time travel? But as we were saying, it was it paid a lot of attention to detail to the time. Unfortunately, 2015 that they traveled to was very, very, very different to the 2015 we lived through. But maybe that was due to the fact that maybe Marty had too much knowledge of his future. And when he did return to 1985 after saving his kids from getting arrested, maybe he in turn changed the space-time continuum, which was what Back to the Future was all about. Marty McFly upset the space-time continuum and changed the past, which as a result affected his own present. Although he was living in the past at the time, he was still in his own present timeline. If you're crazy, as I said, this is where it starts getting a little bit mind-boggling. But due to the fact that his parents didn't meet because he interfered in that meeting and prevented it from happening inadvertently, he started to disappear from his timeline because his parents never reproduced, and thus he was never born. So that's why he had to go out of his way to get George McFly and Lorraine together at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, where he played Johnny B. Good, and inadvertently doing so give Chuck Berry the idea for rock and roll. Wonderful, wonderful things. And some of these pieces of fiction in some of the plot lines in Back to the Future, is there some message there? And I do believe that there is a hidden coded message in these time travel movies that come out at the time, which I am in the process of trying to unravel for you. But as I said, let's go on. We're going a little bit further, but you don't need to read the rest of that. I pretty much summarized that myself. But this is a bit of a weird article website to get through, but it does have a few more visuals. There you are, full 4K Blu-ray box set of Back to the Future. I would actually like to enjoy watching that just to see what extras and stuff are there. And this is something very, very interesting that might be something I'd like to go, even though I detest musicals. 2021 is going to see Back to the Future the musical released. So let's go down a little bit further. The entire journey. This is what we're going to do. From Academy Award winning filmmakers Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis, the trilogy Back to the Future is groundbreaking. It sparked it's horrible to read this, right? One of the most successful trilogies of all time, and possibly was the movie that really did project Michael J. Fox into the limelight. Unfortunately, the poor guy, he's got Parkinson's disease. I'd love to give him a hug. I do love Michael J. Fox just because he was McFly. Not only that, he was also Scott, whatever his name was, in Teen Wolf, and he was also in Family Ties, where I had the biggest crush on his sister in Family Ties, Justine Bateman. Oh my goodness, I'd love to run away with Justine Bateman, or maybe even Leah Thompson, his mum from Back to the Future, especially in Howard the Duck when she was in her underwear. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to lie, I had a tug or two over that on VHS that I paused. Some of you guys, you've been there, you know the drill. But anyway, it changed the future of adventure movie genres. Discover innovative special effects and unforgettable songs. And again, the soundtracks and the music and everything. Like I just need to hear the Back to the Future soundtrack intro, and I get those little spine tickles up my spine and tingles, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I almost feel like an emotional wave hitting me of happiness, joy, sadness, tears of happiness, laughter. It just hits me. It is just very, very magical and a very, very special thing to me and millions of other people who did grow up watching and loving Back to the Future as I did. But it was breathtaking. Everything about this movie was great. It was high octane. You're on the edge of your seat. The characters were all lovable. It wasn't gratuitously violent. There wasn't gratuitous sex. It's wholesome family entertainment at its highest, with a wonderful, wonderful theory behind it of time travel and what would happen if we could travel in time, and what would we change, and what would happen if we changed things that ruined our future. How would you deal about it? But the scientific stuff and all the things that kind of Doc Brown talks about during the movie, this is all stuff that is based on actual scientific theory and research into time travel. And the doc also, if you can remember, is trying to concoct a mind reading device. When Marty did arrive back in 1955, he stuck that sucker on his head and tried to read his mind. 1950s going on in that time, MK Ultra, Project Operation Paperclip, all that kind of stuff. So is there some more hidden and possible sinister implications in Back to the Future that we might have to scratch and unravel a little bit more of in a total episode dedicated just to Back to the Future? At this point, guys, in the comments below, although I do realize we are broadcasting this live at time of recording, I don't know who's watching, but if you are and you want to see a special entire episode on Back to the Future, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, it is Hollywood history, it's cinematic history, but is there some real history hidden within the fiction of Back to the Future? So before we do go and have a little look at some other fictitious pieces of time travel entertainment and pop culture, we will then go and have a little look at some scientific stuff about time travel, and maybe the possibility of some recognized individuals having the technology and devices to do such. And is there is there a 2020 equivalent of the DeLorean? Wednesday, stay tuned, because we will be unraveling that very, very short. Alrighty, guys, so it'd be rude not to mention, before we go any further, another big influence and one of my other probably my third favorite franchise of time traveling shenanigans, Bill and Ted. Again, something some of you guys might be aware of at TSP TV, the mantra that we close each and every episode with: be excellent to each other, comes obviously from Bill and Ted. Bill Theodore Logan in was it Ted Theodore Logan in Bill S. Preston Esquire, the Wild Stallions, who would write the song that would unify the world and bring in a harmonious existence as long as they passed their history test. So not Back to the Future, Bill and Ted come out in 1989, and as I said, in terms of time travel in move fiction, for me it's in the top three, and many of you might even be your top one. I know Maiden out there loves Bill and Ted, and in 2020 in particular, and is why I sort of started out with Bill and Ted, they made their return. They came back in the very anticlimactic and disappointment Face the Music, in which it turns out that even though they knew they were going to write the song that was going to bring harmony to the world, and again, was that a little bit about the song that would bring the one harmony to the world in the form of a one world order? Who knows? But they got lazy and they didn't actually write it, and it got to the point in time where, like, listen, if you guys don't write this fucking song now, then the future isn't come to be. And this is the dangers of maybe knowing too much about your own future, that you kind of will deter from your present courses of action and may inadvertently not therefore come to achieve the future that you had knowledge about by changing the space-time continuum. Now, goodness knows what Bill and Ted did to the space-time continuum while they were researching their history report by going back through time and claiming and collecting a bunch of historical characters: Napoleon, Joan of Arc, Sigmund Freud, Socrates, and Attila the ton of all people, as well as Abraham Lincoln. My goodness, what the time continuum damage took as a result of those shenanigans, one can only wonder. And is that the result of why we're in such a mad world right now? And I mentioned Mad World because that was the song from another time traveling piece of fiction, Donnie Darko. But anyway, is the result of the madness we're seeing in contemporary days a result of meddling in the past with people who have time travel in technology? But Bill and Ted, as we said, they got visited by George Carlin, who some of you may or may not know about, is a comedian, and he was also very, very conspiracy theorist minded, and died in some suspicious circumstances. But as I said, the world of Bill S. Preston and Ted Logan is a better one than ours. The non-fictional year of 2020 has offered more than enough evidence that too many people failed their history exams, and lack of phone booths to carry would-be saviors to fix our mistakes is a subsequent problem. Or is it maybe, Mandela effect, and something we might dabble a little bit on later? Is that a result of kind of time travel similar to sort of Marty McFly giving his dad the sort of strength in confidence to punch out Biff and then write his own books, if you know what I mean? And also he wanted to go back and he inadvertently created rock and roll music. So Mandela effect stems very much similar to the sort of disruptive things to the space time travel. If you could go back in time and change one thing that you weren't happy with, and then in the present time it would not cease to be, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, Bill and Ted, they come out. It's been 29 years since the first Bogus Journey. Not the Bogus Journey. That was a sequel. 29 years since the sequel, and it was a little bit longer. I think maybe 30 or something years since the first one come out. And as we were saying, they needed to go back. They needed to pass their science test, and there is George Carlin that met them at the Circle K in the phone booth. And another reason the phone booth is of significance here is because also another popular time traveler from fiction, Doctor Who. He is the Time Lord after all. He has a TARDIS, which looks like a police phone box from back in the UK. And when it comes to time travel in fiction, I could almost do an entire episode on all of these: Bill and Ted, Doctor Who, to name a few. But as you know, I'm not going to go and read this entire article, but let's go back to the plot, which I kind of just described to you anyway, and some of you should be all too aware of the plot of Bill and Ted. They go back in time through a vast variety of periods and decades, and they collect a bunch of historical characters to come back to 1989 San Dimas, California, place I spent some time in, funnily enough, when I lived down in California, although there isn't a mall with an ice rink there. That's a little bit of a misconception, but maybe they went to another mall that was close by, because there are a lot of malls in southern California in particular. Our malls part of Mind Control, something we did also look at in the fiction, not fiction decoded, reality decoded 80s special when we looked at 1985 in particular. But anyway, they prevented going to military school in Alaska, and they passed their test with flying colors. And as you know, there was Bill and Ted. They had a younger brother. Oh, there was a little baby P message there. Maybe I should have disabled my notifications for Saw in Silence. But you guys know very much about Bill and Ted, I'm sure. And they had a phone booth, and they were able to navigate time. And then in the sequel, they got killed and navigated the afterlife. They went time traveling. And very interesting and quirky little franchise or series of movies, with the disappointment of the latest installment, Face the Music. And they really, although Eddie Van Halen did just die recently, they really did miss the boat by not putting Eddie Van Halen in there as their guitarist for Wild Stallions, because they made a reference in the original movie that Wild Stallions would never ever be a great band unless Eddie Van Halen was their guitarists. But let's just leave us on the picture of Rufus and that, while I talk about some other movies of relevance at the time. And of course, another popular movie in around the mid 80s was The Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the futuristic robot, encased within a human guise, was sent back through a bubble, stark bollock naked, as an expression from England goes. Where he then went out and got himself some levers and an army jacket, went to the gun shop and picked up a Uzi 9mm and a little Colt 45 long barrel with laser sighting and a whole bunch of other military grade artillery, and went on a rampage trying to kill Sarah Connor before she could give birth to the freedom fighter John Connor, who would lead the human resistance in an uprising against the evil machine overlords, artificial intelligence, Skynet, all that kind of stuff. But the theory of time travel in the time loops and the time continuums that get messed up within and around this Terminator franchise is too much to even fathom. But I'm just sort of drawing your attention to it briefly here. To another movie that came out at the time that revolved around time travel. Now, although in the movie My Science Project they didn't actually travel in time, they did open up portals to time that saw people from the past coming into the presence. And Misfits of Science, My Science Project, and I believe Back to the Future, as well as Weird Science, are all somehow connected, and there is some kind of messaging and decoding in there that may or may not unravel some secret, hidden, deep state conspiracies concerning time travel, interdimensional, interportal travel, as well as mind control and stuff like that. But other pieces of fiction, the Time Tunnel, that was another pre-Back to the Future series that I enjoyed very much, and another sort of popular quirky early 90s movie that we make reference to quite a lot in certainly in COVIDian times, is Groundhog Day, where Groundhog Day, we saw Bill Murray unable to leave the day until he managed to make it perfect. It's actually a movie I haven't watched for a while. Although he doesn't really kind of travel or traverse in time, he kind of gets stuck in time, and as I said, he has to sort of relive the same day over and over and over again. And when we sort of get in a repetitive cycle of maybe lockdown, quarantine issues, or maybe get sort of you know, another day at the office, another day at the factory. We make reference to it's another Groundhog Day. So there's a few movies. Let's just mention a few more before we do go on any further, and then we will get into some sort of scientific stuff and maybe some theories about some well-known characters that may or may not have time travel technology or have discovered the ways and abilities to navigate the space-time continuum, like Bill S. Preston and Ted Theodore Logan managed to do.
It's gonna seem crazy. I need you to go in this closet, take a look around, then I'll tell you everything. That was 1960. I need you to go back there to prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Whether Oswald was the man who did it. You'll figure out the rest when you get there. You see, the past doesn't want to be changed. When you're close to changing something, you feel it push back.
Last thing you can say about killing a man is that it's brave.
Mr. Emerson, this is Miss Dunhill.
This is starting nothing. When rules are broken, there's a price. Price must be paid to set things right.
CIA's pulling the trigger. What do we do now? Then you kill Oswald.
Everything you say is a lie.
You guys enjoyed that little visual break, and that was a little trailer for a Hulu series titled 11/22/63, the Stephen King novel adaptation. It's very, very interesting, and I did just watch just the other day, and it does revolve around the Kennedy assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald. And the basic part of the story is diner owner and an elderly, well, I'll sort of say elderly gentleman, but an older gentleman in his 60s, runs a diner, and in the back of his pantry stock room, I guess, is a wormhole to 1960, and he has become obsessed with preventing the Kennedy assassination and believes that Kennedy should have become president and he would have done a great deal of good for the world. But through a result of failed attempts of traveling back to 1960, he never actually managed to do it, and developed cancer as a result. So he taps up James Franco and convinces him about his plot and his plans, and the fact that he has to do this. It's in humanity's best interest to prevent the assassination of JFK, and sends John Franco back to 1960, where he spends 3 years living in the past, foolishly befriends people, embarks on a relationship that sort of doesn't end too well for him, and indeed does interact with not only Lee Harvey Oswald but Jack Ruby and some other individuals that are sort of key figures to the conspiracy behind the JFK assassination, and does actually, spoiler alert, prevent the assassination from taking place, but not at the cost and the price of losing the girl he falls in love with back in the 60s. But the interesting thing about this is that when he does go back in time, it doesn't matter how long he spends in the past, when he returns through the wormhole, only 2 minutes of real time have gone by, so he kind of almost returns to the point of exit, so to speak, and not too much time has gone back. But once he does prevent the Kennedy assassination, again, spoiler alert for you there, he does discover that the world isn't the place that he was hoping it to be on his return. In fact, it's the stark opposite of what they expected, and it isn't a utopia, it's a dystopia. But find out for yourself. Do check out 11/22/63, and there's just a few of teasers of the episodes in question. I think there are only 8 of them. You can kind of get through it in a day or an evening. I did get through it in one night. Very, very, very captivating, very, very interesting. I do sort of like that sort of 50s, early 60s era of time. The music, the sounds, and all that kind of stuff were very sort of appealing to me. And maybe because of sort of, time travel movies such as Back to the Future that took us back to that era. A fonder time, a more simpler time it seemed, when the white picket fences and the apple pie was calling on the windowsill, so to speak. But it was very, very interesting. It does sort of show a lot of stuff going on in the 60s. One interesting little sort of quirky part of this that the diner owner in question, he kind of does go back to 1963 and buys cheap meat, in which he brings to his diner and serves up as the best burger in town at an incredibly low price, because he's buying it for literally pennies on the dollar in 1960s and bringing it back to present time. And there's also a couple of little quirky sort of pop cultural references that back in time, James Franco, he kind of, obviously he's from the present and goes back to the past. He's questioned about his identity, and he kind of claims that he's in a witness protection sort of program, and uses The Godfather as a reference, and said he witnessed the assassination of Fredo, which was pretty cool and pretty quirky. But it's a fun show, but a little bit disappointing in the sense that it doesn't really reveal too much about the conspiracy, which I was kind of hoping the fact that going back in time travel to the Kennedy assassination might reveal some revelations and deep secrets of who did perpetuate that. And in particular, I sort of think to myself, so I had a time machine, imagine going back to a September and Tuesday 2001, and if or not you would be able to prevent that series of events in that particular false flag cycle operation taking place. And something that is very interesting in 11/22/63 is this sort of past doesn't want to be changed, and it will sort of somehow try to prevent you from changing it. And there's also another little bit of an interesting sort of subplot within it, that James Franco, when he's in the past, he does encounter another time traveler who has discovered this wormhole, who has got trapped in a loop. He said he keeps going back to try and change the past, and in particular prevent his daughter from drowning. He said, but every time he does, it just ends up with her drowning. And he said he sort of just got so sick of trying to fix it, he just sort of stays in the moment and doesn't really try to do anything anymore other than just enjoy his moments in the past before things went wrong. And it's very interesting because another show that I used to love that was aired on the UK back in the 1990s was called Good Night Sweetheart, which very, very similar concept. An individual discovered a wormhole to 1940s London, and he eventually sort of opened up a business surrounding the wormhole, so he could go back as and when he chose, and he used to go back and bring back artifacts from 1940s and then sell them in his antique shop to make a living for himself in the present as a result of having time travel. Making his present better is a result of going back to the past, so to speak, changing his future by changing the past. But he also kind of claimed to be a little bit of a secret agent, secret service spy, I guess, because he had so much knowledge of the war from living in the past, in the present rather, and having the ability to know the outcome of what was going on and know that things were going to happen before they happened. And it gave him the appearance of having a greater knowledge back in the past in 1940s. Brilliant. It was a sitcom. It was very, very funny, but it was still very, very fun, and still did revolve around a lot of time travel stuff. Now, as I said, guys, there's so many movies and points of reference that we could bring to you from fiction. And without getting too far distracted in this particular presentation by bringing you more and more of TV shows and stuff on time travel, due to the fact that sort of time is beginning to run against me at time of recording, I do need to finish this up, and I do need to finish the edits in order to have it ready to go for this live feed that we're watching now. It's a little bit like a space-time continuum of our own, a little bit of real life mimicking art, so to speak. with space, time continues. But do check out 11/22/63. Maybe we might delve in a little bit more of this and probably try and bring you a JFK special on the 22nd, which will be as part of the 2 weeks of T 2-year celebrations. So that's enough now, really, for fiction. As I said, I really did have a list of movies that I did want to talk about in this, but maybe we will save it and we will do a sequel to time travel back in time as part of this celebrationary 2 weeks of tea series of live streams each and every night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Set your clocks, set your alarms, set your reminders. You don't want to miss a beat of that, or maybe you do. But anyway, let's go and have a little look at some other interesting stuff revolving time travel before I really do need to start thinking about getting myself a DeLorean or a phone booth and traveling back to this morning and starting the proceedings of recording this presentation earlier. Look what I did there. Anyway, guys, stay tuned because we haven't finished this yet. We have got some more interesting stuff to look at, which will be instantaneous for you. A little bit like when they sent Einstein 1 minute into the future at the Twin Pines Mall in Back to the Future Part 1, although it took a minute in real time for Marty and the Doc to be reunited with Einstein, it was in fact instantaneous for you. And although it took me a minute or so to come out of that last article, stop recording, find the article that we're now looking at, there's been about a minute and a half of time transpired, but for you it was instantaneous. See what I'm trying to do there, guys? Trying to keep within the context of the topic of tonight. But there's a familiar character on your screen you may be aware of, Nikola Tesla, and this article we're going to look at Nikola Tesla's time travel experience. I could see past, present, and future simultaneously. So let's, without any further ado, delve into this. As I said, time is of the essence for me at time of recording and not necessarily for you at time of watching. So Nikola Tesla was obsessed with time travel as well as free energy and all sorts of other stuff that may or may not be used by a certain select few of people in contemporary times. But anyway, he's obsessed with time travel when he worked on a time machine and reportedly succeeded, saying he could see the past, present, and future all at the same time. Now, what is very interesting about it is these experimentations were carried out in 1895, the same year that H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine come out. Is there some connection? Now, I also have a little bit of a theory with regards to Back to the Future and with regards to Nikola Tesla, and in particular Back to the Future Part 3 and the Doc, where the Doc, although he was a scientist from the future, ended up living in the 1860s in the Wild West cowboy times, where he earned his crust and hid behind the guise of a horseshoe smith or blacksmith, whatever they were called there. But is Nikola Tesla, he's developed time traveler, by all accounts he did succeed with a time travel experiment, is he the real life Doc Emmett Brown? Okay, there's something for you to think of. And is he living in the past? Now, we're going to go a little bit further with this Tesla time travel theory after this little article. And this is an episode that I did kind of have planned as a one-off, one topic sort of event, Tesla, Trump, and time travel. And we possibly will do that. And I might even be bringing in the big guns and my dear friend and somebody you may be aware of, Annie Bradell from Prepper Chicks, to work on that, because we've been bouncing a lot of stuff off of each other in a non-physical sense. Don't think there's any sexy shenanigans going on, folks, but we have been bouncing some ideas and stuff off of one another and been contemplating and adding to those theories. So we might bring our work in progress to you as a little bit of a collaboration and as part of 2 weeks of tea, 2-year celebration of TSP TV. But anyway, the idea that humans are able to travel through time has captured the imagination of millions around the globe. If we look back at history, we will find numerous texts that can be interpreted as evidence of time travel. Albert Einstein published his theory of relativity in 1905. It created a buzz, the scientific community opening the page for many questions such as time travel a possibility. There is also evidence of time travel in the Bible, according to Eric von Danken. In the Bible, a prophet Jeremiah was sitting together with a few of his friends, and there was a young boy. His name was Abimelech. And Jeremiah said to Abimelech, "Go out of Jerusalem, there is a hill, and collect some figs for us." The boy went out and collected fresh figs. All of a sudden, Abimelech hears some noise and wind in the air and becomes unconscious. He has a blackout, and after a time he wakes up again and saw it was nearly the evening. So when he runs back to the society, and the city was full of strange soldiers, and he says, "What's going on here? Where are Jeremiah and all the others?" And an old man said, "That was 62 years ago." Is this a time travel story from the Bible? You let me know. And does it give you the verse there? It doesn't actually. So some of you could have maybe, who have Bibles and read religious literature, might have gone and checked that out for you, for yourselves. But according to reports, in 1895, and again 1895, if you change two numbers, you get 1985. 1985. There's stuff going on. As I said, I've got a theory and stuff that I'm working on, and it is one of those things that I do think I need post-it notes and strings and a pin board to start piecing that together. Yeah, it's coming to that, guys. The tin foil hat stereotype is coming very, very real. But anyway, he made a shocking report back in 1895 that he suggested that time and space could be influenced by magnetic fields, and that's something that's very, very underlying in all the science fiction sort of time travel movies, or a lot of them anyway, that they do need an incredible large amount of power, 1.21 gigawatts, or some kind of nuclear reaction. Now, bear in mind that Nikola Tesla did develop a free energy device that could quite possibly supply the power source needed to generate the ability to trigger the 1.21 gigawatts or 88 miles an hour. I do believe there is some form of relevance in both of those numbers. Those aren't just random things, I'm sure. But is he got the technology to do it? And was the Tesla tower the energy source that could indeed navigate an object back through space and time? And was that the same sort of brass and copper techniques and stuff that was holding together the H.G. Wells time machine? And what the H.G. Wells time machine was built of was very similar to the components that you would need in order to build a Tesla tower. And in particular, something we did feature in the 1985 reality decoded stream was that the Trump Tower also is built out of all the things that you would need in order to create a Tesla tower. And not only that, is it in fact a giant TARDIS time machine? And Trump and time travel was something I did want to kind of coincide together in an episode, because there is, of course, the novel Baron von Trump's Adventure, in which a young gentleman travels back in time to the eve of the election from a destination in Lower Manhattan, which is almost identical to that of the Trump Tower. So is the Trump Tower a giant TARDIS? This is stuff we can chat about after the presentation, maybe, if anyone is still paying attention to this. And is Trump a time traveler? This is where we're all going on there. But anyway, reports, Disclosed TV reports, a part of the admission had come from Tesla experimenting with radio frequencies, EMFs, low wave, short wave, long wave, all that kind of stuff, along with power transmission through the Earth's atmosphere. The discovery would many years later lead to what is known as the Philadelphia experiment. And again, guys, this is where we are going to be going into the sequel, because there's stuff like the Philadelphia experiment, Montauk, all this stuff we are going to have to cover. So over the next coming days, guys, there is going to be some interesting content for you, and some of you will be able to choose your own content in a type choose your adventure deal that we will be bringing to you. But as I said, this is looking like we will be going into a sequel, back in time special live stream, because there's just far too much to put into just a single episode, and due to the fact that I am running against a time restraints at the moment. We are going to fast track a little bit, but he discovered with radio frequencies and the transmission of the power through the Earth's atmosphere, the discovery would lead to the Philadelphia experiment. So I've read that. I was just recapping myself. However, a long time before the top secret military programs were even thought about, Tesla had already made some discoveries that were fascinating. Tesla had already made some discoveries that were in regards to nature of time and the possibilities of being able to travel through time. Now, there is a video there that I don't want to click on just in case it is too long. But the experiments of Tesla in a high voltage electricity along with magnetic fields led him to discovering that time and space may be deformed to essentially create a door or wormhole that may lead to another time. With the discovery, Tesla then went on to discover through his own personal experiences that traveling through time came with some real dangers. Tesla was said to be hit by 3.5 million volts of electricity. The very first experiment that Tesla had with traveling time occurred in March 1985. A New York Herald reporter wrote that he found the inventor sitting in a cafe after he had just been hit by the 3.5 million volts of electricity. The reporter said that Tesla had told him that he would not be very pleasant company to be around due to the fact that he had almost died. He went on to say that a 3-foot spark had jumped into the air and hit him on the shoulder. Tesla then went on to say to the reporter that if it had not been for his assistant turning the power off straight away, he would have been killed. Tesla then went on to say that when he was in contact with the resonance from the electromagnetic charge, he had found that he went out of his space and time window. He said that he had been able to see the past, the present, and the future at the very same time. He admitted that he had been paralyzed in the electromagnetic field, and so he had been unable to help himself. Thankfully, his assistant had been beside him and had been able to turn off the power before any severe and permanent damage had been done. This incident was said to have been repeated in the Philadelphia experiment by the United States government. Many years later, the repetition of the exact same incident occurred during the Philadelphia experiment. However, this led to sailors being left outside of the window space reference for a long time, and this, of course, had results that were disastrous. The Philly experiment was the alleged military experiment, which was said to have been carried out by the US Navy in 1943. It was said that the escort, the USS Eldridge, had become invisible to enemies. However, the US Navy has said no such experiment had ever happened, and claims that the ship become invisible did not conform to physical laws. So that was just a little tidbit on Tesla and time travel. I am going to stop recording now, see how long the video is, and if or not we see it in this particular presentation or not remains to be seen. But we are going to move on a little bit to some other points of interest in regarding Tesla, Elon Musk, and the DeLorean before we do wrap up this presentation, because I've got a very short amount of time in order to get this presentation finished and then allow for time to finally edit and format this into one big segment for your enjoyment and viewing pleasure, which hopefully you are in doing so immensely at this point in time. So as I said, we may or may not see this video in a second or two instantaneously, but I'm going to shut the recording now and see how long it is for myself. If it's too long, we will be jumping in with some other stuff.
Hey, Einstein, where's the doc, boy? Huh? Doc!
Marty, you made it.
Yeah!
Welcome to my latest experiment. This is a big one, the one I've been waiting for all my life.
Well, it's a DeLorean, right?
Bear with me, Marty. All your questions will be answered. Roll tape.
Okay,
And we'll proceed.
Doc, is that a Devo?
Never mind that now. Never mind that now. Not now. Not now. All right, I'm ready. Good evening. I'm Dr. Emmett Brown. I'm standing on the parking lot at Twin Pines Mall. It's Saturday morning, October 26, 1985, 1:18 a.m. And this is temporal experiment number 1. Come on, honey. Hey, boy, get in there. Now, boy. In there you go. Sit down. Put your seatbelt on. That's it.
Whoa. Okay.
Please note that Einstein's clock is in precise synchronization with my control watch. Got it?
Right, checked on.
Good. Have a good trip, Einstein. Watch your head.
Got that thing hooked up to the car?
Watch this.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Got me, the car. My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit. Watch this. What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour! The temporal displacement occurred exactly 1:20 a.m. in 0 seconds!
Jesus Christ, Doc, you disintegrated Einstein.
Calm down, Marty. I didn't disintegrate anything. The molecular structure of both Einstein and the car are completely intact.
Where the hell are they?
The appropriate question is, when the hell are they? You see, Einstein has just become the world's first time traveler. I sent him into the future. 1 minute into the future, to be exact. And precisely 1:21 a.m. in 0 seconds, we shall catch up with him in the time machine.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
The DeLorean. Gull-wing doors rise effortlessly, beckoning you inside. The sleek, stainless steel DeLorean. Beautifully crafted for long life. The DeLorean is one of
are looking at the Tesla Cybertruck, and we just saw a little bit of infamous Back to the Future scene there where Marty first discovered that the Doc had built a time machine out of a DeLorean. And if you remember, the DeLorean was chosen because of its stainless steel body, which for the life of me I can't remember the science for the reason because of that. But anyway, a little while ago, good old Elon Musk, who brings us the Tesla hybrid automobiles, brought out the Cybertruck, which was also a stainless steel bodied four-wheel drive vehicle that also was solar and electric powered as well as fuel, I believe. Now, if you can remember a little bit of a dilemma that Marty and the Doc faced in Back to the Future 3 when they did go back to the 1860s, that the DeLorean withstood a bit of damage to the fuel line and they lost all the gasoline, which obviously was the power source that was required to get the engine of the DeLorean up and running. And without the engine to maneuver the DeLorean time machine, they were unable to get it up to 88 miles an hour. So if you had if you have remember, they had to use the train in a series of staged explosions to generate the power, which they finally did manage to successfully reach 88 miles an hour and send Marty and back to and the DeLorean back to 1985. But if you had a solar powered vehicle that could be powered and charged from the sun, if you did go back in time and suffered some fuel line damage, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem. And also having a four-wheel drive version would also give you a lot more maneuverability, as unlike the sports spec DeLorean. But anyway, Tesla's Cybertruck is audaciously authentic. The property of the 301 series stainless steel gives Tesla's first pickup truck unique sales attributes while saving on tooling costs. Not since Ford's epic switch to aluminum for its F-Series body structures has an automaker's material strategy created quite a buzz. Tesla's decision to use stainless steel for its upcoming Cybertruck as part of what CEO Elon Musk calls an exoskeletal structure design. Maybe they need the exoskeletal structure design to navigate the time portals and tunnels or wavelength, if you get what I mean, just as the DeLorean was required to have the exoskeletal structure of aluminum. But this design aims to give the new electric pickup strength and durability beyond that of its competitors. And again, we've mentioned that it's electric. You wouldn't have the issues that you would have if you lost your source of fuel, or if maybe you just run out of gas while you're back in the past. You know, there's only so much